Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. In this video, I'm going to react to, is the biggest weather event of the year on its way? Now, America, obviously the weather there can be very, very extreme, you know, from hurricanes to earthquakes to tornadoes, all sorts of stuff. And being able to predict these things is often quite hard. Like, I don't think you get much notice time when it comes to tornadoes. I think that now it's maybe you can get like a couple of hours notice. So yeah, it's not a lot of time. And there's theories that a massive, huge event is on its way. This channel here, it's by Ryan Hall. He specializes in covering massive weather events, making predictions and stuff like that. And the feedback of the video is extremely positive. So I'm guessing he really does know what he's talking about. So it's going to be a very interesting video. Let's do it.
So far this year, the weather has been absolutely crazy. From monster tornadoes to historic floods and record-breaking cold and snow blasts, I, for one, am ready for a vacation. Unfortunately, things aren't looking to calm down anytime soon. We are on the brink of experiencing a super El Nino that will have the potential to cause more extreme weather through the rest of the year. In this video, I'm going to explain exactly what that means for you and how you can prepare for it. Every couple years or so, you'll hear about this El Nino Southern Oscillation, or ENSO for short, which basically refers to the temperature of the biggest body of water on Earth, the Pacific Ocean, specifically around the equator. We refer to periods of cooler than average waters in the Pacific as La Nina, and when things start getting warmer, we call that El Nino. For the past 3 years, we've been in a La Nina.
So that's Spanish for the boy and the girl. I wonder why, why those specific words and Spanish were chosen for that.
Nina oscillation, which is quite unusual as a typical La Nina will only go on for about 9 to 12 months. And several months ago, the waters in the Pacific started to show signs of heating up, causing us to think we were probably headed into an extended period where the Pacific was somewhere between a La Nina and an El Nino, and we usually call that a neutral ENSO. But now, sea surface temperatures are already starting to rocket past what would be considered neutral, prompting the Climate Prediction Center to actually issue an El Nino watch for all of Earth. What this means is we've got a 90% chance of being in a full-blown El Nino by late fall, and it's very likely that temperatures are going to keep going up as we go into winter, and that could lead to a much stronger than usual El Nino, and some people call it a super El Nino. Now, I know a lot of you are probably wondering at this point, why do we care about how daggone hot the water is out here in the middle of nowhere? Well, once again, this is the biggest body of water on Earth, and the weather...
So I'm guessing, yeah, because it's such a huge body of water, that water obviously spreads all over the planet, so it's going to have effects all over the place.
Patterns down here have a ripple effect that ultimately affect everything in the atmosphere worldwide. You see, normally the winds near the equator blow pretty strongly from east to west. We call these the trade winds. And usually these trade winds will shove warm water and all the thunderstorms that they fuel away from South America, which allows the cold water from underneath the surface to rise up and suppress new thunderstorm growth in the middle of the Pacific Ocean for the most part. At least that's how it normally works. However, in situations like the one we're in, the trade winds actually start to let up and a huge heat dome builds up over the Pacific. This keeps all the warm water in a giant pile in the middle of the ocean, sparking off numerous big-time clusters of intense thunderstorms. This change in activity sets off a chain reaction that literally shifts the jet stream so much the weather is affected pretty much everywhere on Earth, even in your own backyard. And it's pretty obvious how El Nino can affect global...
The weather over here in the UK has been very weird. I don't know about the States, but I think it has been weird over there as well. But just, you know, it will be really hot one day, then it will be really cold the next day. It will be super dry one day, super wet. It's just been like up and down, up and down, up and down. There's not been like 1 week of consistent weather.
Global weather and widespread patterns, but how can we determine how exactly it's going to affect smaller, more specific areas like your backyard? Well, the weather is complicated, and what happens on a day-to-day basis is influenced by much more than just the current phase of the ENSO, but El Nino is so impactful that there will be noticeable differences in the average kind of weather you see throughout the rest of this year. For example, down here in the southern US, things are going to get wetter than average all the way through winter. This is because the warming waters in the Pacific will literally shift the Pacific jet stream towards the US, leading to more storm systems training over this region. And during a regular El Nino, this can cause flooding and mudslides, especially down here in California. In fact, during the winter season of 1998, during one of the strongest El Ninos ever recorded, an estimated $4 billion in damage was done and 190 lives were taken by major floods down here in Southern California. And remember, this upcoming oscillation could be abnormally strong or a super El Nino, so we have to watch these areas very carefully. In the northern US, things will
does this have anything to do with climate change or anything like that, or is this purely just something that is out of humans' control? Like, is there anything that we can do to kind of maybe help prevent this, or maybe, reduce the effects?
Likely be much drier than usual because the jet stream winds will be oriented in such a way that large storms will impact this area less often. This is also going to lead to much warmer than average temperatures, which can be expected as we go all the way into winter. Even this seemingly quieter kind of weather pattern change can have extreme implications, like droughts, where a lot of the more intense ones happened during an El Nino phase. These are all big problems, but El Nino can even affect smaller or more specific features of our weather, like tornado activity. Due to the way the Pacific jet stream will be hitting the US, there will be more recurring storm systems in and around the Gulf Coast and Florida. And because of this, we can actually expect an increase in tornadic activity down here as we go into winter. And probably one of the most interesting things about El Nino is how it impacts winter weather here in the States. Typically, the East Coast is going to be expected to be warmer and drier than usual,
and we've been experiencing warmer winters as well. Like, it's just clearly something is going on, with this planet, in my opinion anyway.
That might lead you to believe that we're going to see less snow, and that very well could be true, but there's also a correlation between El Nino and strong East Coast blizzards. You see, due to the Pacific and polar jets being shifted so close to each other, they will sometimes interact in a way that actually causes moisture-induced polar phasing systems that bury parts of the US in deep snow. And El Nino actually plays a huge role in our hurricane seasons here in the US. Remember how we talked about a giant heat dome and high-pressure ridge that would likely form over the Pacific? Well, this is going to lead to a big bulge in the jet stream that's almost certainly going to cause a big trough on the eastern side of it. And this basically just means that strong winds and colder air aloft is going to dive into the tropics over the Atlantic Ocean. These strong winds will create wind shear, and hurricanes hate wind shear. And you're probably thinking, but Ryan, you're always talking about how wind shear actually creates severe thunderstorms and tornadoes. Shouldn't it intensify hurricanes too? And the answer to that is no. Unlike mothership supercells and wedge tornadoes, hurricanes are big babies. Everything has to be just right for them to thrive, even the smallest thing like a little bit of changing winds in the upper atmosphere.
So I'm guessing that tornadoes are more sort of like a durable or able to, start than a hurricane.
Fear can literally tear them apart. El Nino has the tendency to create an environment that's not so good for babies, so it's less likely that tropical storms and waves will have the ability to grow into hurricanes as we go deeper into the season. So if a super El Nino is in our future as we head towards 2024, we can expect potentially disruptive warmth and dryness from the Pacific Northwest through the northern plains all the way into the Northeast. We can also expect a lot of potentially dangerous storms in Southern California to Florida, but the ones in Florida will more than likely be tornado related and not hurricane related. And then there's a whole lot of variability for all the areas in between. So what can we do to prepare for something as big and impactful as a super El Nino? The first step is to remember what I always say. Don't be scared, be prepared. Just make sure you understand the potential.
And I'm guessing things like having a lot of water in your home, maybe if you can have like your own power system, maybe like a solar array on your roof, like maybe some canned foods, like non-perishable stuff, or like long life foods, just in case you can't leave your house for a certain period of time. I'm guessing things like that would be really helpful.
Impacts in your area and have some way of organizing the steps you need to take to mitigate the risks associated with whatever that may be. My gut tells me that's something that you're interested in since you've watched this whole video. And as always, I highly recommend having a good radar app for that. A real good one like Radar Omega. I've used Radar Omega for years and it's my personal go-to radar app. It's also what I use to guide millions of people through severe weather events during live streams. And I've talked about this before, but the latest update update on this thing is absolutely nuts. The app is super snappy, responsive, and the user interface just keeps getting simpler and cleaner and easier to understand. This is a professional tool. You can have the exact same stuff the people at the National Weather Service have access to just by downloading an app, but they make it simple to use.
A lot of the terminology and language is quite new to me, but I definitely got, a good idea of what he was talking about. It seems that, like there's this massive cluster of like hot water, I guess, in the Pacific Ocean that's going to have a massive effect on the world's weather and stuff. And me personally, and everyone that I speak to has confirmed, like the weather this year has been really, really odd, like very, very unpredictable, all over the place, and it looks like it's going to get worse. I don't know if it's a result of human activity on the planet. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I know some people don't really think that human activities had an effect on the climate. It's hard to really get a definitive answer on that, but like I remember last year we had an extremely hot summer, way hotter than, I think it set records multiple days, and I think that's just going to get worse and worse. But yeah, hopefully this El Nino doesn't cause massive tornadoes that claim a lot of lives and stuff, because the US has already had quite a few of those this year. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.